First thing that I do want to talk to you guys about is um, price action, right? So obviously, um, you guys are here to understand and and learn about a couple different things in charting, right? So a lot of gurus or a lot of people like to say, hey, well, we there's no disrespect, right? I'm not going to give anybody disrespect. I like a lot of gurus out there, they know their stuff. I just like to trade differently, and when I trade differently, I look at price action and volume. Those are the key things that I look at, simply because I've been very successful with it. I've been with other members that have used certain watch lists, and they've stated the same thing, right? They're like, hey, well, this is actually really good. I don't use any option flows. I do not use think or swim. I don't use Trader VIX. I don't use any of that. And that's just me, but my team does, right? So in Rome's trading, we have individuals that use option flows. We have individuals that do crypto. We have individuals that actually do more than just price action and volume like I do, right? So we have a very diverse team. And what we like to do is like to show you guys, okay, this is what we're looking at and why we're looking at certain things and how to analyze a certain chart, right? So I'll give you an example, right? So we're looking at SPY right now. Obviously, the most important thing that I like to look at for SPY, obviously, will be tomorrow morning, and that will be with pre-market lows and pre-market highs. Okay, so I'll give you an example what we did through through Thursday, real quick. I gave out a Twitter alert on Thursday stating, hey, this is a pre-market high and this is a pre-market low. And if you decide to get into calls, I kind of let you guys know, okay, this is an area that you want to get into calls. If it doesn't break and base above it, then you would want to get into puts, right? And how did I determine that? So basically what I like to do is I like to use TOS. So when I look into TOS, the first thing that I want to do is, okay, I have all these, I have all these indicators up. Um, and I like to remove all my indicators, right? So first thing I do is, like, I'll remove all my studies. I won't have any EMAs up. I won't have, my VWAP or anything like that. What I like to do is just straight use just the chart itself, and that way I can analyze accordingly. So when I gave out an alert, or when we gave out an alert on Twitter, we said, okay, well, this is a pre-market high, this is a pre-market low, right? So what you always want to do is that you want to make sure that you create a level, more like a resistance slash uh, supply area in the morning. And that's just a pre-market high, right? So I don't really look at anything else. I just say, hey, this is a pre-market high. What I'll end up doing is I'll just create a little rectangle box stating that, hey, this is my pre-market high. I'll color code it. And you want to do that simply because when you are trading live, you want to see, okay, how this plays out. And then you do the same thing for your pre-market low, right? So when you go in further out and you say, okay, well, TOS actually does it since 2 o'clock in the morning. Put cursor over video. Oh, click flywheel. I think this is all right. Sorry, I'm trying to read, and I'm trying to do this at the same time. Give me 1 second. I know that there are. Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. So what I like to do is, like I said, I like to look at the pre-market low, and this is my pre-market low area right here. Right. So I basically do it. Okay, where did it get bought up from, and where was the wick at? And then basically the same kind of concept as I do with the with the pre-market high. You just color code it, right? And a lot of traders, when you're new to trading, you don't need to play off of the 1 minute time frame, right? 1 minute time frame, and I'll be completely honest with you, right? It's more for those professional traders or traders that know how to play the 1 minute chart. They know how to utilize, how to get in and how to get out, right? So 1 minute is not easy if you're not able to understand it. You want to go with a 3 minute time frame, the 5 minute time frame, etc., right? So I'm just showing you first and foremost off the 1 minute. Then we'll go into the 5 minute time frame just to kind of have an idea of what to look for. Um, So on the 1 minute time frame, right, I said, hey, if it breaks pre-market high levels, you want to get into calls. If it resists, you want to get into puts. And with puts, where would it target? This is what we're going to teach you, right? This is how I'm going to teach you. Okay, where is a price going to target, right? And what we'll do is that we'll kind of go back in different times, so that way, we already know that SPY had a crazy nice little run up yesterday, right? And it's kind of hard to determine, okay, where is the price going to go down, right, when we were going up. But I also gave you guys price actions, right? So say, for instance, this entire morning session didn't happen, and I said, okay, well, these are the levels that SPY can go to, right, if it breaks in basis above the pre-market high. So basically what you want to do is you go back, right? So I go back into, I go into my 15-minute time frame. This is the most important part where I look at is a 15-minute time frame, right? So we'll create price action for today, for tomorrow also, but at the same time, I want to create a price action accordingly, right? So previous days, for instance. So if we go back to these days right here, remember, I don't have anything up on my screen right now. And when I'm looking at price actions, I want to see where there's a jump and where there's a pivot, right? So you have your top, and then your resistance, and then you have your drop. You have your top, you have a pivot right here, and you have a drop, right? So these areas right here are going to be considered price action, right? So say, for instance, we want to go back because the price is so high. We're at 415 right now. So I want to go back a little bit further out, and I want to see, okay, well, being that we're already at 418, 419 area, sorry, 415 pre-market high right now is 420. ES is at 4,200 earlier today. So what I like to do is I'll go back and I will look at price action, right? So we're at the 17th area. So what I'll start doing is I'll look at price action and I'll say, okay, well, you see how we have this pivot right here, right? We have this drop, we had a pivot, and we bought up, right? So basically right here at the base of the candle, you create your first price target. Okay. And then you wait for the next part and you see that, okay, there was some sort of resistance. That's your next price target, right? So I'm just showing you different price target areas that you can start creating. You have this huge sell off, right? You have a pivot and then it comes back up top. So you create another price level at the base of the candle, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have it at the base level. And I'll show you why. As we're going on into the video, I'll show you exactly why you want to utilize that. And this is nice little tweezer tops right here, which will be in another session, that I'll explain a little bit more about that, right? So I'm just showing you guys different areas for price action right now. So now, same exact concept, right? You have your drop and you have your pivot, right? So at the drop, at the pivot level, you can create your next price target levels, right? And then the same thing up top here because you have the rejection, right? So if you want to, you don't have to create multiple price actions, right? You want to give yourself some breathing space because when you are in the play, you want to make sure that you're able to secure profits, right? You want to make sure that you're able to not just secure profits, but give yourself some extra leniency because the more price targets you have or the more price actions that you have, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a really hard time figuring out if you want to get out at which levels, right? And you're playing so congested within the price action that it makes it difficult for you to secure more profits, okay? So same concept, right? So I'm going through and I'm just trying to create, multiple areas where it could run to on both ends, right? So I'll see a little drop here, and I'm like, okay, well, you have your pivot, you have this is your consolidation area, so you can actually create one in the consolidation area because when it broke, what happened, right? We dropped, and then you have your next one about here, right, at the pivot level. So we have a few price areas right now, and I think it's trading around 415 area. um, so I want to just, give you guys a couple more price actions, and so that way I can kind of show you where potentially, it can basically go to, right? So I go further back out and I say, okay, well, you see how we had a drop off. So over here there was a resistance area, right? So it couldn't pass. The candle did not close above at this level towards the end of the close, right? So that would be a nice little area for for your price action. And then basically you want to kind of zoom out a little bit more. And then you just kind of follow the trend, right? So you want to see, okay, well, this is a good area right here at this top because that's when it broke down. Now, if we go into today's trading session or yesterday's trading session, right? So let's just go back all the way to today's trading session. Look at where all your price targets went to, right? You had the pre-market pump. Where did it settle, right? Where did it exactly settle? It settled right at our price action that we just created a little while ago, right? And where was the next one consolidating, or where was it getting, there was a test in this area right here, right? At this price action. The following one, where did it kind of stop out at? And you have the wicks, right? You have the candle that tried to close, that closed barely above, but it was in a certain, it was in a good area, where it was there for a good 15, 20 minutes, right? And where did the pre-market, if you look at after hours, where did it get rejected? At the next price action, right? So all your price actions that you create, as long as you're creating it the right way, they're going to interact with each other. That's the beauty of a price action, right? So same concept on the downside. So now that you have this created from way back when, and you notice where was this at, right? So everything that's been created, like it's already there, right? Price never lies, right? Understand that price will never ever lie. Okay. So you know that, hey, well, this was your pre-market high, sorry, yesterday, I mean, on on Friday. You want to create your next, you could create your next level of price action at 408.33, right? And then when you come in, you drop, you'll have another one around the 406. So for SPY, for tomorrow, right? So I have my price actions already in place. So what would I do tomorrow if the market opened up exactly where it's opening up at 417.66? And just let's just say the market opens up at 417.66, right? Or the market can open up where we closed, right? So same exact concept is that I would say, hey, wherever my pre-market high is, that is where my puts or my calls entry will be, right? If for instance this was my pre-market high, so what I'll do is I'll just change the color real quick so that way we can kind of have an idea of what we're talking about. And we'll say, hey, this is your pre-market high, which is a green one. The yellow goldish one, this is your pre-market low. If it breaks and bases above your pre-market high, you want to jump into calls targeting what? Which area is it going to target? It's going to target for 2027 area. Okay, that's your first target. Okay, where will it target after that? 422.75. Where would it target after that? 425.73, 428.86, right? There's going to be some sort of resistance around the 428.86 area. But how do we know that, right? We just created those price actions live, right? Same opposite direction. If it breaks in basis, if it can't hold this pre-market high and it drops, you can get into puts. I would do a very strict stop loss above your pre-market high, just in case we go the opposite direction. You can get into your puts. Where's the first target? Where your pre-market low is, right? When to enter a play when candle touches our price action or when it breaks basis above. Yeah, right. So yes. So hypothetically, right? So I would look at the 5-minute time frame, right? So here's your 5-minute time frame. All right. So this was your pre-market high on Friday. Okay. Candle open. This was your very first 5-minute period, right? So obviously it went above our pre-market high, right? Morning session right away. At 9:35, where was your candle, right? Your candle for your 5-minute time frame was already above, right? And this is a solid green candle. Why would I want to get into calls here? Is because your candle closed above this previous candle. Now, hypothetically, say for instance, you saw this red candle, but it did not close, right? You want to make sure that the candle does not close below this line right here, right? This is where this candle closed on the opening session. Okay. So if it doesn't come back down, and you're in a level where you can play off of the high of the wick on a 5-minute time frame, and say that, okay, as long as it stays above here, I can get into calls because you know where your next target is, right? If you do not have a solid game plan where you do not know where your price action is going either to the top or the bottom, there is no reason for you to get into a call or a put. I'll be completely honest with you, right? Other people would say, yeah, you could definitely get into it. Why? Like, if you're not comfortable, do not get into it, and you have to know where your exit strategy is. Otherwise, why are you getting into a play if you do not know your exit strategy? Okay. So on a 3-minute time frame, for those that are uncomfortable playing on the 1-minute time frame, this is pretty easy for you to actually play, right? So we didn't have this year and we did not have this year. Right. So the pre-market, remember I said pre-market, you wait for the candle. This is your 3-minute candle. You want to see the following candle. Where did where did the price action close, right? You have a doji here. Where did it close, right? So you see that, okay, well, this is a strong, it's a nice strong candle. It basically rejected the pre-market high. Wait for the following candle, right? So you're already at 930. This is 933. This is 936. You can wait on this candle and see, okay, well, the price did not go lower than, the candle did not stop lower than here, right? Like it did not come back and fill this wick. Or you kind of just play it out, right? You want to see, okay, well, if you're never late with SPY. All right, let me just get that straight. You are never, ever, ever late with SPY. On a 3-minute, you could always come back and say, okay, well, if, for instance, if my candle, say, for instance, I want to get into calls, right? I will put this mark right here and I say, okay, well, if this does not come down below on the next drop, this is your drop, right? And see where that candle closes on the following one, you can get into your calls, right? Because you know that, hey, well, this is an area where, you don't have to worry about getting into puts because your candle did not close below any of these two candles right here, right? Or if you're still uncomfortable, there's so many different ways. There's so many different ways to get into a play, especially with SPY. Another way to get into play is if you do a base up of this candle right here, you wait for that drop out, you wait for it to come back, and you get into your calls, right? That's basically how I would get into my calls over here. Like I me and my team, we jump at the board, right? We say, okay, this is a 3-minute candle. The candle is above, right? You have a very, very tight stop loss. So if you are in calls, right, and you went just straight off the first candle, not the second candle, your stop loss is right here, or your stop loss is right here, right? At this stop loss, you're already down almost $1, right? From your entry if you entered right about here. So you have to make sure that you maximize your stop loss accordingly. All right. So like I said, like you have to have an idea of where your price targets are on both sides, right? So so like I said, for SPY, if I was to play SPY based off of these levels tomorrow, just on pre-market, that's how I would play it on pre-market. Now, as a watch list, all right, so say for instance, we do a watch list on SPY. I always go into a 15-minute time frame. That's my very first time frame that I go into. It's my 15-minute time frame. And then I look at, okay, well, where are, we don't look at the after hours, right? You can look at the pre-market, obviously, but we don't look at the after hours, right? What do we look at? We look at, the actual intraday movement on the 15-minute time frame, because we do not know, obviously, what's going to happen during the pre-market time, right? And obviously tomorrow we don't know how the market's going to open. So say for instance, we do not know anything about the pre-market and we're just looking at yesterday's price action, which is right here. So how would I get into my puts or my calls, right? So first thing is, like, I remove a few price action levels myself and I'll say, okay, this is where the range was. We had it from here and then we pumped up to here, right? So I know that, hey, at this level right here, there was some sort of resistance, right? Because it brought it back down. And then what happened? We kind of pumped up. So being that we dropped from here and we kind of based at this level right here before the run up, my price target for puts would be below this wick right here, right? Which would be 411.88. Why would I do 411.88 and not way down here, right? Because that is still $1 movement for SPY. which is significant. If you're trying to make profits, this is a $1 is still $1. If you want to be safe, you can definitely utilize this area right here, right, for puts. Where would the target go to? 408, right? So if I was to play on a watch list tomorrow for SPY, this is exactly how I would do it, right? So 411.88 area for me personally would be my area for puts, and my area for calls would be obviously at 415.35 and above, right? That's how I would play SPY and on the 15-minute time frame, right? So I like the 15-minute time frame. Me personally, sometimes like if I want to be very, very, very aggressive, I can definitely try to do it at this level right here, but this is just being very aggressive, right? You have to manage your risk, noting that, okay, well, if I get into puts at this level, and if it, if it breaks and bases below, that's the only time that you get into puts, right? So say we go into, I'm going to go up to a different one because we are in, in this session, and I want everybody to be able to, we can look at different stocks and different ETFs. So let me see. I have SPY's already there. Tesla and Amazon. Tesla and Amazon. This is a fun one. So Tesla. Anybody that played Tesla with me on Friday, I gave you guys a lotto play on Friday, right? So with Tesla, what I'm going to do is same thing. 15-minute time frame. I am going to look at the level where we had, so this is entire crazy movement, right? We had so many little areas where it based, right? So we had a pump, and we had the little drop, we had a pump and drop. Where was a major turning point, right? There really isn't a major one. When I see too many things like this, too much up and down movement, I don't really like getting into I don't really like, how do I say? I don't really like giving a watch list if I'm not comfortable with the watch list, right? So hypothetically, in if I'm looking at it, this area right here will probably be an area that I might look into trying to scalp a quick puts play. Right. So then the next level that it can come down to is at the base of this candle, which is 746.91. Following one is all the areas that you have a base is where the price action will go. Okay. And there's no secret sauce to it. There's no secret sauce to it. Don't let anybody fool you or tell you, well, it has to, you have to have XYZ. No, there is no secret sauce to price action, right? Price action never lies. It'll always, always, always come, interact with those levels. And just to show you, right? I'll zoom out. We just did 3 price levels, right? So we can go back and we can say, okay, well, how did these price levels react um, before, right? So where did this one happen? Look at the base of it, right? This is on May 17th, right? Base right here, rejection right here, right? See this pump up right here, rejection right here. Look at this level right here in this corner, right here, right? You see that wick? It's at this level, okay? We could go further back and just show you that, okay, well, these price actions, they work out as long as you know how to play it, right? And as long as you know, okay, well, these are the areas that it can potentially go to. Look at this rejection right here on this time frame right here, right? So this rejection, right? This is that price target. Look at how it based over here, right? It had a hard time in this exact level, right? So you have to, like, if you don't like a certain level, say for instance, I say, well, Romeo, you know what? I don't really like this, right? Because it's still interacted so many times. You could always remove it, right? You could always remove it and say, okay, well, you see how we have this base right here, we have this pump, and then we have the drop, right? So you create it at the base level, right? See how those price action turns out later on, right? So you see how you have that rejection wick right here, and then you can see that you had a base right here, right? So certain places, right? This is where the base of these candles, right? You don't have to look at the wick, right? The wick is good to look at, but look at your base levels, right? So right here, right? So you have to know where your prices can go and where it would either consolidate or will get rejected or where there will be a pivot up. Okay. Um, so when I look at, um, let me just do this real quick for you guys. All right. So if I say, okay, well, let's look at Tesla. Let's look at where, Tesla can go to, obviously. So if I look at Tesla and I say, okay, well, I don't really honestly, and I'll be completely frank with you, I don't really like, um, the this big of a movement. That's a $13 movement. But if I wanted to play it safe, what I would do is like I would have it down here at 740 because you notice that when you had that pump, you had that little drop. This is a big candle to go to the upside, right? And then even on these other candles, what happened here, right? At the 50% fib level of this candle, which is right about here, you had where you had a base, right? And then it just kind of pumped up. So I know that this candle is a very strong candle. So why would I want to do a put level at this line right here? That is because if it fails this, we know that it can potentially go down to this level right here because this is where you had your candle closed, your candle open, right? So know that, okay, well, if it breaks out of here, which is 740, it's going to test 735, right? So same concept going further down, you know that it's going to test 723.10 because this is where the base of each of the candles were. You go back to yesterday's date, you look at the high point, and I would do it at the base level right there, right? So you see where the pre-market movement happened. So from this level right here, 740, that's up to a 716 drop, right? 740 to 716. Same thing. You look for your base, you say, okay, well, this is your drop. You see a little base. Does it pivot? Not really. It doesn't pivot. It drops right here and it pivots up, right? So this is your next level. So now you have 700, 718, I mean, sorry, 716, 723, 735, 740, right? So for me, if I wanted to do Tesla and I say, okay, well, I'm going to get into puts, I would say this is my puts entry. And if I'm going to do calls, right, I am going to look at where was resistance at, right? Where did it close? And where was resistance at, right? So obviously, because there was no other data for this day, you want to make it for the high of that day, right? So we'll say, okay, well, I'm going to say for now, this is where my call entry is for now. And I'm telling you, and I'm going to tell you why momentarily. Okay, so now you have, sorry, let me put this in a different color. Green. Okay. So now you have your call entry and your put entry. What you do now is you want to back test the theory, right? So you kind of go back and you say, this is your back test theory, right? Look at where Tesla got rejected. Look at what happened when it broke the put entry. All right. So you see when it broke the put entry, where did it go down to? Price action. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 levels they went down to, right? Same concept. How did this fare? This fared still well, right? Because when it broke, it went past the first one. It went down to this one, which is 728, which is still a significant drop, right? It had a hard time reacting up here, right? So that's when you could scalp this because this is still, if you wanted, like I said, I haven't done the price action, towards the top. This is 760 from 759.82 to 764. That's still a $5 movement, and you can still utilize that, right? So what you want to do is you see how it came down, it dropped, right? Where did it base off? It based off of your call entry and then it pumped up, right? So this level right here that you have for your calls and for your puts is actually pretty solid because it actually has been working out very, very, very strong. Look at the rejection right here for the calls entries, right? So you know that if it breaks this call entry, what's going to happen? It's going to pump up, right? So you see where the pump happened. So where you can do now is like, okay, well, now I can start creating my price levels where it can potentially go to, right? So notice, where am I doing it? I'm doing it off a base of candles, right? Because that's where the interactions are going to happen. So from 759, this can jump up to 782 area, right? Just based off of this, I'm not going to put the highs, right? I'm going to give you certain areas that it can play off of. And if you look at it, right, you see how these candles play out. You see how it consolidated here, right? When it dropped, what did it do? Like it stayed here, 15-minute candle, 15-minute candle, 15-minute candle dropped out, 15-minute candle dropped out, right? So this is just off of a 15-minute time frame that we're looking at. Sorry. So I am on a 15-minute time frame. Sorry. Whenever you're doing your watch list, you could give yourself either a 30-minute time frame or a 15-minute time frame. When you are in a position, right? So say, for instance, you decided to get into, let's just say calls, right? Because Tesla ripped up. So if this was your call entry, hypothetically, the yellow one, not your put entry, this is just hypothetically on the, what I end up doing, like I said, is I go on my 5-minute time frame. I want to see how the reaction is on my 5-minute time frame, right? So if this was my call entry, then I basically would wait for the candles to close above and get myself into a position, but create a very tight stop loss. So my stop loss would be at the first price target, right? Because if it breaks out of it, you're talking about a $5 drop, right? So you have, if you're playing Tesla, you have to understand, okay, well, where are your exit strategies if you're in the wrong way, right? And then once you're in a play where you want it, so sorry, what I do is like I get into a play on a 1-minute time frame or a 3-minute time frame, and then I stay on a 5-minute time frame to either keep me in a play or get me out of a play. Okay, so if I'm in a play and say, for instance, I'm in calls, right? Because on my Friday, I said calls above 7.8, 7.17, sorry, 7.16 area, right? So this is, it pumped up to 7.20. If I get into a call, right, and I'm in a position right now and I'm in a call, how do I get out of my calls, right? So when I see the candle close, I look for the following candle. Obviously, this is on a 5-minute time frame. I am keeping an eye on, how this candle reacts. Once this candle closes, I create another trend line, right, which is right here. And you can kind of just mark it out if you want. So that way you kind of know where your exit strategy might be. All right. So when this candle closes, I create my trend line at the base of this one, at the base of this one. This is it right here. I'll wait for the following candle to see what it does. Okay. Did it come back down here? No. I'll go for the following candle and I see how far it goes up. What do I do then? I will make another trend line at the base off of this red candle right here at the top. And I'll say if the candle closes, let's get, like, I want to emphasize this. If the candle closes if the candle closes on, up out of this blue line, then I will probably get out of my calls, right? And that would still be a nice scalp depending on how, where you got into it, right? Are you paying attention to the EMAs on a play or strictly playing the preset levels? No, I will always, okay. So I personally like to play on EMAs, right? I play on the EMA 9, I play on the EMA 20s, the EMA 9, the 20, the 48, and the 200, right? And I play off of the VWAP. So this is just like I said, like, a lot of people don't know how to play off of EMAs and VWAPs, right? I like to play off of EMAs and VWAPs. So what I'll end up doing is, let me just add my studies back in for you guys. So I use 48. All right, so this is the one that I utilize on the 1-minute time frame is my entry. So say, for instance, if I was looking at Tesla on Friday, right, and I said, okay, for me, like I said, I like to play off of the 1-minute time frame. What I do is I wait for a pullback. All right, so I like to look at all my indicators, right? I have my 200 right here, down here. I have my VWAP over here. I have my 48. Know where your indicators are, right? I never get into a position for a candle that is out of my 9. I wait for that pullback, right? So say for instance, I missed this entire move here on this candle. I look at this is obviously on a 1 minute candle. The following 1 minute candle, I see where the pullback happens, right? And if once it touches my 9, I would think about getting into calls. As long as my highs, my lows are higher than the previous low, right? So I want to make sure I have higher lows at the same time that I'm getting into calls. If I don't have higher lows, then there's really no reason for me to jump into a call on a 1 minute time frame. But what I would end up doing in advice is that I always tell people to look at the 5 minute time frame, because a 5 minute time frame gives you a bigger picture of what is happening. And I'll give you a little bit of an example. All right. So on a 5 minute time frame, right, you see that there is right here, right? So you have tweezer bottoms happening over here, right? So I pay attention to my tweezers, right? There's no tweezer tops here. There's a tweezer bottoms over here, which I would explain that, in our Discord channel, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. So when I see this pump up on a 5 minute time frame, and I'm like, okay, well, I see where my 9 is at, I see where my 20 is at, and I see where my VWAP, my 48 is at. These are crossed over, so that's a bullish signal for me. And if I don't get into the play over here, I can wait potentially for my VWAP to come down and out of my 9 and my 20, right? But then I would miss a big play on Tesla. So for me, like I said, like my confirmation candles are on my EMAs. I want to make sure my 200 is down here. If I was to look at the 15-minute time frame with my indicators, here's my biggest thing, right? So when I think it was like last week, we were playing Tesla. It was on Friday, I believe. And we got into puts. And obviously I sold because, I scalp a little too much at times. So I look at where my 200 is at on a 15-minute time frame. And that's very important to me, right? So if it's at the top level right here, that's an indicator for me to potentially get into puts if it does not get tested, right? So there are indicators I like to utilize, like right here on Wednesday. You see that it came, right? It broke out of my 200. It based off of my 200. This is an area that I would think about getting into calls, only because if I'm going to scalp, right? Because it held the 200 very well, and that would have been a nice little $10-12 movement, right? If I'm going to scalp. If I'm going to swing, absolutely not, right? Because there's no strong candles that closed above here, right? These are all very small candles. You have a small doji, you have very small bullish candles, right? So you want to then zoom out and look at your hourly time frame. This is the fun one, because what you can always do is, if you're looking to swing a position or swing a play, you can see how it acts on your 200. This is your 200, right? On a 1 hour time frame. You notice that in the morning on the 1 hour time frame, right here, this candle right here, right? Where did it base off of? The 200, right? So once it based off of the 200, you're able to get into your calls. That's a good area to get into calls. Otherwise, we can potentially go back down, right? And with Tesla, I gave out that alert a couple days ago, which I said that, okay, keep an eye on the 1 hour time frame for the 200. So that's basically how I look at certain levels for Tesla, certain levels for SPY. Let me just look at anything else real quick, what you guys are looking at. I don't want to keep you guys in for such a long time. We are already at 8:45, so we'll try to keep it quick. But I do want to get to you guys. Let me see, Baba. All right, so let's look at Baba. BABA. All right, go back into my 15-minute time frame. All right, like I said, like I have all my indicators there. If you guys notice, there was already a puts and calls category, right? Because we did a puts and calls prior. And before I even give you guys, just a little thesis on it, Look at this level right here, right? You see where the calls entry was, where the puts entry was, right? This was, when was this? 526. I didn't make this on 526. I forgot when I made it. But it was probably uh prior to that. Look at the rejection right here for the puts. I think it was like in the beginning of May or sometime earlier, but that was way before Twitter, right? So just those two entries, those two areas. Let me just remove my study so that way you guys can actually see it a little bit better. All right. So if you look at just those two entries, right? This was, like I said, this was before Twitter. So this was in the beginning of May. Look at where your call entry is. Look at where your put entry is. Rejection of the put entry. Look at where the price action is. Hit the first price action, hit the second price action. Look at later on, third price action. Look at this one, fourth price action. You see how it got rejected right here? And basically it based at this level, right? It tried to pivot up right here, it consolidated, it came back down. Where did it reject? Right back at that price action. So this, like I said, was done back in the beginning of May, and it's still very, very solid um, movement, right? So I didn't do anything different to it. I just kept it as it is right here. Yeah, this is where it was done. Because I was also looking at another the next day. I was like, all right, maybe I'll look at pre-market. This is your pre-market, and I'll see that if I want to play the position, and it got rejected, and I didn't play it, but this was, I like looking at Baba on a different daily basis. But all these price actions have played out very, very well. Rejection, rejection, right? Finally in pre-market they came up. Look at the opening, right? Went through it, hit all price action, 1, 2, 3, 4 levels, which is 88 to $93. Okay. I didn't do, like I said, I didn't do anything different, right? Look at where this level right here is basing off of. So we can continue playing this route and saying, okay, well, how did um, how did it close, right? So we know that this is the area where it closed. This was a pivot, so we came back. This is a pivot. All right, so if I wanted to look into getting into puts, right, I would look at this level right here, which is 96.25, and then I'll look at this one right here, which is 92.53, and this level right here is 92.25. So this is a 20, about a 20, a little bit over a 25-cent movement, right? So if I wanted to be a little bit more riskier, right, I would say, okay, I want to get into the puts at this level. I personally wouldn't do that. I would look at where the actual pivot happened in the big movement, which is right here. So I would say, okay, puts below 92.25 and calls, because the candle closed over here, I have to look at the next rejection, which technically is over here, which is 94.50. But I know that if it breaks, high is 93.51. If it breaks 93.51, we will see these areas. So I will say for Baba, those that are interested in Baba, um, here's your freebie right here. Calls above 93.51, puts below, sorry, I'm just writing this out for you guys, puts 92.25. Okay, so puts, calls. All right. Price targets, where are your price targets for your puts? You have 91.66, 90.67, 89.79, 89.31, and right where our call entry was prior, which would become like a resistance, I mean, a support area. So where can price action go? Because we don't have anything above 94.40. We say, okay, well, let's just take a look at this one right here. We see how it got rejected right here. So you could either do it at the base at 94.83. I wouldn't. I would at least do it at the top of this wick, because that gives you almost $1 movement to the upside. Well, sorry, $2, like almost a $2 movement to the upside, about 50 cents away. So $1.50 movement to the upside. I'll go further back. And I'll say, okay, well, where else can price action go? Right. So this is where you have to start looking further back and you start seeing that, okay, well, where is your resistance at, right? So where was there some sort of rejection? So there's rejection here, 1, 2, 3 candles, which is 95.67. So if I want to give myself a little bit more breathing space, I would probably take this one out, right, to give myself a little bit more of a fluid um, play, right? Because I don't want to be stuck within like 50 cents to 75 cents. I want to give myself a little extra space to make some extra profit. The following one probably would be at this base level right here, which would be 96.50, right? So that's already a dollar from here, right? And then I will go further back. Okay, well, where was this pivot right here, right? You see how you have this drop and you have a pivot, right? You have that base and then you have that pump. So right here at this level right here, I would say this is my next entry. I mean, my next price target. All right, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4 levels. That's a $4 movement. And if I wanted to just to do an extra one, I could do it where you see this pump and then you see this drop right here at the base of this candle right here, which would be 98.70. So those are your price targets uh, for um, for BABA. You have your calls and your puts. Potentially, this is to the upside. So what I'll end up doing is whoever asked for Baba, I'm going to put this on Twitter for you. So this is just for you. All right. So let me just see what else people are asking. Um, sorry. All right. So I have in here NVIDIA. Yes, NVDA. This will be the last one because I guess there's nobody else asking. Um, Unless somebody else decides to ask. Obviously, we did the spy, um, we did Baba. Did. All right. So the session is going a little bit longer than expected. All right. So this was a clean chart. I mean, man, they ran this bad boy up. All right. So you have your calls above 188.05. No, sorry, 188.81 is where the high was. So we'll just put that line there for now. I kind of want to back test it just to see if it's worth waiting, getting into at 88.81 or probably um, 91 area. Oh, sorry, 90 area. And then with NVIDIA, this is your main resistance to support area, which is 183.63, right? That's a $6 movement, and personally, I don't like when I'm doing this $6 movement. So I like to look at different time frames. I'll look at the 5 minute time frame to kind of see, if there was a better, is there something better for me that I like? Um, so if I'm looking at NVIDIA and I'm saying, okay, well, do I like anything in this time frame, right? So I know that, okay, well, if it breaks out of this right here, right, you had this dump right here, then you had a nice pivot, right? This is a beautiful pivot. So I will look at 186.58, potentially testing these levels down here, right? So your first level that it will test is 186.05. Do I really like that? Not really, because that's not giving you a significant profit. So you want to go further down. Okay, this right here, which is 185.70, which is a dollar movement, right? And then based off of each pivot, right? Each drop, each pivot, that's your price targets that it can go to. So you have 185.70, 184.89, 183.62, and then eventually down here at 182.11, right? So if you wanted to do uh, NVIDIA, this is basically kind of where I would do it off of the 5 minute time frame and not the 15, because you're going to miss out on so much revenue, right? $6 movement. Think about this, right? A lot of people won't tell you this. $6 movement. You know who's making money on those $6 movement? Market money. MMs are, right? Or the people that don't want to tell you that, hey, it's okay to play a little bit tighter, right? But why would you want to miss out on such a big portion of profits? I will give you another hypothetical idea. Okay, we had before. Sorry, I know that I'm going off a track with this, right? But I wanted to talk about AMD real quick. All right, and I'll tell you this why. So on AMD, I said calls, puts. This is it right here, right? And it only touched the first price target, right? It only touched the first one. Really didn't do much. Okay, most people, most analysis, or most people will tell you, okay, let's not look. Let's. I want to give you a little bit better of example because it's just mind blowing to me when they give you such a um, big, what do you call it? A big range um, to play certain levels off because you're going to miss out on so much profits, and it's insane. Like it's really, really insane. It's just that we had such a crazy day. Um, right. So if oh, man, I don't even know because like we had such a crazy movement the last 2 days, where it makes it very difficult for me to even show you what I am going. Okay, here, let's take a look at this, right? So most traders would tell you at the base level, they would say, okay, well, sorry, let's go into the 15 minutes. Okay, so what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, it's easy to play certain levels, right? Not all do, but what they do is that they'll say the bottom and the top, go play. All right. So this is 89.60 and this is 93.16, right? So they're saying calls above here, puts below here. Most of them are not going to give you guys a exit strategy or give you price action to the top or the bottom. Okay. Had you played this route, this was on the 24th. The following day, which is the 25th, you would literally be sitting there and not be able to play into calls or puts because there has been no opportunity for you to play. Why? Because of such a big gap. So who's making money here? If you're just playing off of these levels that a lot of and like I say, I have no disrespect to anybody out there, so I'm not going to say names, but I've seen them saying, okay, well, calls above 93.20 and puts below 89, and then the next day is just trading in between, and you're missing out on so much profits because your spread is so high that you're missing out on opportunities to play, right? So like I said, like I like to keep it a little bit more tighter. Why? Because like I like to make sure that you are able to make profits. So we'll finish off. NVIDIA is already pretty much done. I'll share that with you guys. We are kind of running, a little late now, and I want to make sure that everybody is um, who's on gets an opportunity to take a look at a few charts. Okay, so same thing, right? So Target had a nice little movement to the upside. I'm looking for like the biggest area for um, a pump up, right? So for me, I don't like anything on the 15-minute time frame. Let's take a look at the 5-minute time frame. All right. So on my 5-minute time frame, right? So if I was to say, okay, well, 163 and then 167, that's a $4 movement. I don't want to give you a $4 movement to the to miss out on profits, right? So I look at areas where there's resistance and where there's pivots, right? So we know that, hey, you know this is where it closed, so obviously you want to make sure that there was nothing else, right? We didn't reject it, come back down, reject it. This is it. This is the high, right? So we will say, okay, well, calls above 167.20. Now the puts area is going to be the most interesting area, right? Because where do I want to get? Where would I want to get into puts? I would get into puts at this level right here, which would be 166.09. Why? Because if it breaks out of there, you see what happens, right? You see how it had that double rejection. here, and then it finally came through. It took a little while for it to come back through, right? So this is my area for my puts, which would be 166.09. My first target would be 165.30, which is the base of this one. For just keep going down. That's it. You're just paying off of the base of each one. That's all you're doing, right? Because you know that that was a demand, like a support area, because they brought it right back up. You see how it kind of settled here. But I would clean this up a little bit more. But like your main thing, like I said, is to look at where there's resistance and where there is support, right? So concept of the same thing, you kind of go back and you say, okay, well, here's my 15-minute time frame, right? This is a huge gap that we have to fill, right? So you have to then kind of go back further back, and this is where the time consuming parts happens, right? So whenever I try to give you guys a play, I want to make sure I give you price action, and this is perfect, right? So um who brought it up? Yeah, Epic brought this up. So let's look at 360. All right, so I have to go really back because I want to make sure that there is some sort of price action for you. And now we have to go back all the way till March of 21. Okay, so same thing. I got to make sure that I have price actions levels for you guys, right? That's just the way I like to do things. I'm not going to get you into anything or state something where there's no data involved, right? So based off these candles, right, then I look at where are the levels where there was a drop, a pivot, right? Same right here, come back down. This is right here, right? So I have for you 168.96, 170.49, 172.97. Go further out, right? So you can go further into different. This is your pivot back up, right? Pivot back up. So you know that I'm creating all these additional ones simply because we have such a high gap to fill, right? Resistance right here, resistance, resistance, resistance. Can go further back out a little bit more, right? You have your resistance over here. Sorry, right here. All right, so now let's kind of just zoom out. All right, so if I was to now look at, right, I have data from here, right, which is February of this year. So I have enough um, data for for potential price action to the upside, um, all the way now till February of this year. So I don't have to go all the way back now to look for price action, right? I can now go into February and see, okay, well, these are what the levels based upon my price action that's already, that I gave out, that I'm looking at, right? So you have to do your own due diligence and see, okay, well, because of such a gap that that we had, you have to be able to understand, okay, where are the next levels that price can go to. We can't just say, hey, it's going to fill a gap, right? There's different areas that it has to go to before you're able to fill that potential gap, just like with NVDA, with any other stocks out there. Yeah, so sorry. Let's just look at that again real quick. So yes, so personally, um, like I said, like this was my area for my puts, right? So I'm just gonna, and I did this on a 5 minute, right? And because I didn't like the 15-minute time frame, what it did, so I have to kind of zoom in a little bit. But you see, this is that rejection, right, for the puts, and this is your area for your calls. And with the price action obviously up, which I will give out later on for you guys, right? So you have your calls and you have your puts, and you have your target price action that it can potentially go to 168, 170, 49. You want to make sure that whatever price actions that you have, they play out very, very well. Okay. That is I know Neo or Apple. Oh my goodness, you guys are killing me here. It's already 9 o'clock. I've been here with you guys for an hour. All right. Okay, so here's the thing, right? So I would love to give you guys um Neo, Apple, all that good stuff, right? But let me just go back into NVIDIA real quick for the person that asked for NVIDIA. Here it is, right? So I said, okay, I want puts yellow 3. So I would say puts at 186.58 and calls above 188.76. I want to give you a $2 range that you guys can play off of. So I will look at one more in a bit, but let's just make an announcement, right? So a lot of you guys that are on Twitter, you guys have heard, that we are a brand new platform. We have 7 different individuals in our platform that are very, very well knowledged. We have people that play crypto. We have people that short crypto. They long crypto. We have analysis that understand the market, in a different manner. We have people that do option flows. So, for what we are going to do, being that we are a new Discord channel, but we have very diverse based, individuals, and we have been very successful. You guys have seen the watch list; they've been very successful. So, for Discord, what we are doing is that for the first 100 members, we are giving 2 weeks of free trial, right? So, first 100 members that join into Discord have 2 weeks worth of a free trial. What does the Discord give you guys? The Discord basically, I would be doing live trading Monday through Friday for we'll start about 9:15 before market opens, and we'll be doing calls, alerts, puts alerts. That's basically what I'll be doing. And it's up to you guys if you guys want to enter or not enter. So, yes, um, Monday through Friday, we will be doing live streaming daily for a few hours, potentially longer. And then 2 days out of the week, nightly recaps. And then Sundays or Friday nights, depending on people's schedules, we'll have a recap and what we will be looking for the following week. We will have watch lists for the week, along with the daily watch list. So in the mornings, I will be giving you guys, what the watch list would be. We will look at SPY, we will look at the QQQs, we'll look at pre-market, we'll look at the pre-market highs, the lows. We will trade live with you guys, right? So this is, like I said, it's a 14-day free trial. No obligations if you guys don't want to be part of it. So come on through, test us out. Like I said, the first 100 members will get a 14 days free Discord. Um, Now, like I said, there is more opportunities later on with that. So come join Rome's trading, which we have 7 different analysis. Like I said, in Discord, we're going to be fire. We're going to be doing our watch list. You guys will have the first privileged watch list. Webull, Twitter will come second. Our entries is going to be on Discord, and then it'll come out, obviously then it'll come on to Twitter. But we are not going to sit here and force anybody. If you guys want to join, like I said, we're giving out 14 days free trial on Discord for the first 100 members that sign up. That I will post the link for you guys. I will also post it um, on Twitter, so that way you guys can have that access. Let me just put it out there for you right now. And then like I said, last one that we will look at will be one of my favorites. Obviously is Apple and Neo. So for those that are you still watching, I want to know Neo or Apple. Which one do you guys want? Neo, Neo, Neo. All right. Neo it is. Neo it is. One of my favorites. Love Neo. We made so much profit off Neo. Um, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to make profits. Anything that's on the watch list, going to um, we are going to play, right? So we'll have the screens up just like the way I have it up right here, and we will play. All right. So base over here, which was 1624, right? I want to see what this one was at. This is 1623. 1627 was a high here. So right here, 1623 would be my area for my puts. Three. And I'm actually going to play this one tomorrow live. And then calls, not at this wick right here. I want to see where this one is at 1654. Did it get rejected again? And where did this one close? It closed at 1657. Since it closed at 1657, what I like to do is go a little bit further back. And this is the base right here, which is 1647. That's basically where it's at right now. So now I have to look at right here, which is 1657. Yep. All right. So you see why I looked at different things, right? Like you see where these trees are bottoms. We got that pump up, right? So this is a good area to get into calls. If it breaks that level to the upside, why not, right? So 1657, we're going to have to keep it as is. Like I said, it's just because of the way the market closed, right? We closed on such a high note that you kind of have to utilize, the high for the day, unfortunately, which I don't really like doing so much, but we got to do it. We got to do it. All right. So where were some of the major rejections, right? So we have the rejection over here, and then we have that resistance that was over here, right? So you have to create your price targets. So we have 1657, 20 cents up, 11 cents up. A lot of people are like, well, that's only 11 cents. Mind you, like with Neo, right? Here you have to look at this. Since you guys are on, let's just show you this real quick. All right, so Neo, right? Hypothetically, where Neo is at is 1650. Like we can look at the calls, right? And your delta is $54. So every dollar movement, you're making $54, right? So understand that because it's such a low price, right? We're looking at $72 or $75, depending on what the contract is, right? So those 15, 20, 30 cent movements are going to be big to the upside, right? They are profitable. You're looking at 15, 20% movements just off of these little movements that, people don't really look at. But I'm going to remove the 1689. I want to see a better. We'll keep the 1677 because that's basically where. No. Right. So you see, like I like to give you guys where I have to like it. I have to love it. Right. So anything that I give you guys, I have to love. And we're going to do right here tweezers. All right. So we're going to do 1684 as your first price target. The second price target would be right here, which would be 1710. All right. The following one could be at this wick right here at 1729. But I have to kind of go further back out and see if there's anything in between. This is the entire pre-market movement, right? Or after hour movement. So I want to see if there's anything during the day right here. Right here. All right. So let's just look at these movements right here and see how that reacted, right? So obviously you have your big resistance over here, right? But it really wasn't, right here, right? Then you have that base over here, your rejection over here. Where did it come down to? This is your pivot point. Did it act? It acted over here, right? It got rejected over here. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 price targets, and we'll just add a fifth one for fun. All right, so 1815 would be the top of the line for me. Why? Because that's where it got rejected back on May 4th, right? And we haven't seen that level since May 4th. So those that do decide to come and give us a trial, we'll go more into details why we choose certain price actions. Okay, that's your call entry, your puts entry. Where can the puts go? We go further back out Thursday. This is where it kind of consolidated, right, at the 1591. If it drops out of 1591, where can it go? Right here. This is where it got bought up at 1561. Right further down, we look at areas where there was some sort of resistance that became support, which would be 1481. But I like to give one more because it is Neo, and we'll look at right here at the top of this base. So 1519. Okay, so these are your levels for Neo. That's all she wrote. Like I said, first live stream, I understand that we had some technical difficulties this morning. On the next one, like I said, I will try to do it at least once a week for you guys and girls, at least on YouTube. We'll make sure that it's a little bit better next time. But it was more of just showing you how to look at price action and how to look at where you want to get into calls and puts, right? The whole EMA 9, the volume, and all that kind of stuff. That's all for later on, right? This was just more like, okay, I want to show you how to chart. I want to show you what to look for. I want to show you where you can try to get into calls, where you can try to get into puts, where can price action go. That's the most important thing. All the other stuff is not as important, right? Like, it is important. Like, don't get me wrong, volume and all that stuff is very important. But if you do not know where price can go, why are you going to get into play, right? You have to know where every area of support, resistance, supply, demand. Those are the most important things that you need to know as a trader. Other than that, if you guys have no questions, thank you for joining. I hope to see you guys on Rome's Trading. Have yourself a good evening.